Hey guys, welcome back to N90X. Are you thinking about upgrading your data center to 10 gigabit? Well, to do so, you're going to need a 10 gigabit switch. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the 10 gigabit switch that I built using legacy NetScaler MPX 7500. Now, the story starts with the 10,500, okay? I have several of these 10,500s, and I thought that I would utilize this as a 10 gigabit switch. Essentially, I upgraded this 7500, and the great thing about the 7500 is basically these are identical units, just the 10,500 has more processors and more memory, and a different riser card. And that's the problem, is that the 10,500, because of how it was configured, it has a single, the riser card has a X8 and two X4s on the one side, and on the other side it has two X4 slots. So the X4 slot will not support a dual 10 gigabit interface. Whereas on the 7500, it has two X8 slots on the one side and a single X8 slot on the other side. Perfect for what you want, because basically you have the two X8 slots that you need for the 2 times 10 gigabit cards, and I'm using Chelsea on cards here. They're about $39 each on eBay, and a 4-port slot, 4-port Intel card that came with the NetScaler. What else? This, I happen to have upgraded this internally, because the cool thing about the 7500s is you can upgrade it. It does have the identical dual quad cores, and it has, I maxed out 32 gigs. Don't need it for this application. I'll probably remove that. But I have my, here it is. This is my fiber optics connected up to it, and this is, the yellow is going to my switch, which connects to the internet. So essentially I have 4 10 gig ports and 4 production 1 gig ports. The 2 built-in 1 gig ports are part of the bridge. You can configure it however you want. However, you know, Citrix has always said that these are not production quality ports. You know, you can take that with a grain of salt, but you know, best to go with the production ports here. But certainly for like lower utilization stuff or for management, you can use these. Now, to kind of show you what I got going on here, fiber optics coming out, going down, excuse me, connected to the back of my Hackintosh here, running Mac OS, and where this information comes from is this channel here. What's the name of this channel? Can't think of the name of the, oh, this is not on YouTube. I downloaded the video. But if you Google, and I'll put a link to it down below, 10 gigabit home networking part 3 or P3, build a switch. This gentleman, basically I just followed what he did using the VYOS operating system to build this switch. And here we are on my Mac. I'm connected. I can do show interfaces. And, you know, following some of his instructions, I defined a bridge, added a description to the various members. I even reordered the MAC addresses so that it's more of a logical layout. And if you look at, let's go into networks. In my network settings, you can see that I do have a built-in EN1, Ethernet 1, but it's disconnected. And here's my 10 gigabit connection. Getting a DHCP from my router, not from the switch that I just built. It's all going through, and just to show you that that is, if you go to hardware, you can see that it is a 10 gigabit short range. And yeah, MTU, yeah, definitely MTU is at 9,000. That's cool. Oh, that's what I was looking for. That cool. It's 9,000. Awesome. What else? That's about it. That's all I wanted to show you. And to show it, I mean, to see that it's working. You know, if I go to a browser, go to N9, you know, internet's working. It's snappity fast. Should be. Of course, my connection is going to be bottlenecked because it's going from a 10 gigabit connection to the switch, and then it's going 1 gigabit to my infrastructure, and out to my ISP. But the idea for this is to be able to connect up multiple servers to the switch so that when you're going server to server, you'll be utilizing the 10 gigabit bandwidth. And that's really the cool thing about it. As far as power consumption, with dual quad cores, 32 gigs of RAM, and those 3 network cards, I'm burning, looks like 164 watts. The max was 211, probably on boot time. And 0.7 amps, the maximum was 0.9 amps. I'm in Europe, so it's 230 watts of power. 234 is what I got. This is measuring. So yeah, it's burning 165 watts, which is not bad. And it's quiet. Oh, the other thing that I modified on this guy is I removed the Citrix fans, which are 3-pin, and they're not pulse width speed controlled. Replace them with 4-pin fans, and then of course in the BIOS settings change it to let the server know that you've got 4-pin fans and you want it to be on a server mode, and it's much quieter, as you can hear. I mean, I'm in the same room. I'm not sure what the decibel level is, but it's definitely livable. Of course, I'm going to put that into my rack, and I've got sound absorption material everywhere to try to help with that. So it's going to be relatively quiet. The other thing is, because if you get a 7500, you've got the dual power supplies. So that's going to be making this more reliable, if you have a main power and maybe a backup power to keep the switch going. If the switch goes down, your whole network goes down, right? Especially if you're doing server-to-server transfers and stuff like that. But this is just the first step, and it's just one idea that I have for a new book on utilizing legacy NetScaler products for other things. And this is a 7500, as I said. If you can get the 7500, which they usually are available on eBay for under $100, or if it's make an offer, just make an offer for less than $100. Get it. The cool thing is it's highly upgradable in terms of the memory, the CPU, and as you can see, pulling out the cards and putting in what you want. I'm using the Chelsean cards, which is what this guy used. Certainly, if you have Intel cards, the Intel cards will work, but of course, Intel cards are more expensive. Chelsean cards, I think I paid, I want to say $39 each for them, something like that. Maybe a little bit less. And that's about it. I guess hopefully I covered everything. But I said, the main thing is that I wanted to use the 10,500s, but because the riser cards don't support the number of X8 slots that I need, this guy has the X8 slots. All of the slots are X8 on the riser card, whereas this one has, on one side one X8 and 2 X4, and on the other side 2 X4s. So not really able to handle the 10 gig board, but this just worked just flawlessly. Following this man's instructions here. So just another idea for you to utilize. Get some cheap stuff. Certainly for probably around $200, you could build a switch, a 10 gig switch with at least 4 ports, 10 gigabit, 4 ports production quality, 1 gigabit, and relatively quiet, relatively low on the power consumption. And the cool thing is, you can obviously, when you're not running your servers, or you don't need to be doing 10 gigabit transfers, or the servers are shut down, you shut the switch down, right? So you're not using power 24/7. So, I hope this has been helpful. Guys, before we go, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why don't you use the NetScaler operating system and just enable layer 2 in the NetScaler to make it a switch? And yes, you could do that. But the problem that I ran into with trying to do that is the NetScaler, being a purpose-built appliance, hard-coded into the BIOS is the number of 10 gig ports. That's number one. I was not able to overcome that. Number two, if you put in Chelsean network cards into the NetScaler and try to boot up, the system will crash because there are no drivers for it. Now, certainly you might be able to go in, add the drivers for it. It is free BSD, but of course if you were to upgrade, you'd lose that. But even using the identical Intel 10 gig network cards, dual port network cards that the NetScaler supports, they still were not showing up in the NetScaler GUI or even in the command line. So I did try that, and maybe you have a way to get around it. In the current build, I only use Chelsea, and so I didn't actually try it in the 7500. I was thinking, wow, now that I have everything working in the 7500, maybe I should put the Intel cards in and try to run NetScaler OS. Maybe that'll be something for a future video, or maybe that's something you can play with if this is something you're interested in. But I got a working switch, and I'm happy with it, so I'm not going to really mess with it right now.